Today, I'm really excited to have my friend Tim Sae Koo with us today. He is the CMO, the Chief Manifestation Officer, and a partner for One Heart, where he gets to pour his heart in selfless service after bootstrapping and successfully exited his first tech company after the age of 27. So thank you so much for being on the show, Tim. Appreciate you
It's
being
an
here.
honor. It's a pleasure. Excited
Yeah.
to share.
Where are you right now, by the way?
I'm currently located in Miami, Florida of all places. Definitely wasn't expecting that as I've been kind of backpacking around the world for this past year. But, they say that you try to have plans and God kind of slaps you a little bit to help you realize that you don't have much control. And now I'm in Miami.
So you've been traveling around the world, totally open space, free spirit traveling. Now that you're restrained to one
Sure.
specific space, how does it feel?
Yeah, I'd say like the normal response is like, I'm bored, I feel trapped, I'm restless. But as we learn, the choice of every situation is up to you. And I'm choosing to see it as a time to practice stillness through meditation, practice curiosity through lots of reading and all different types of topics, and then just kind of like staying inwards and diving inwards to unravel any issues and challenges that I've sort of maybe put under the rug and bring that more into the light.
So the way I kind of relate to all this pandemic, the COVID-19 situations, is that this is effectively a giant global ceremony where we
Yes, perfect. I was going to use that word as well. That's a perfect description.
Experience all the intensity of everything, and it's in many ways it's a blessing in disguise. So, and let me unpack why I say that, because a lot of times we get so busy in our daily lives and we forget to look at certain areas of our life. Now we are in the pressure cooker. I'm changing analogies again. In the pressure cooker, now we could see where certain areas in our lives is a little weaker. Perhaps certain relationships, perhaps our relationship with our kids, perhaps our health, perhaps, and so on and so forth. So I'm curious to know, from your point of view, what kind of rituals do you have to help yourself get grounded, to get centered in all of this when all of this is happening?
Yeah, so I've been practicing like going to sleep by like 10 or 11 at night to wake up around 6 or 7. After that, I'll kind of be awake and lay in bed, but just kind of like take some deep breaths. And there's a powerful practice where you can state some sort of, let's say, mantra or just self-motivated belief that you have in the morning right when you wake up, because your brain is so primed to receiving at that moment. Hence why many also agree that it's not such a good idea to open social media right when you wake up. So I'll say certain things to myself. Lately or previously, it's been around like, I am worthy, I am loved, and it's just simple little reminders. After that, I'll go take a walk. I really enjoy participating in nature. I see nature actually as a way to communicate with spirits and some higher power, whatever you believe in. And so take a walk, make some breakfast, and then just lately I've been practicing like this idea of like, where is my heart at in terms of its excitement? So yeah, I still have work and I still get to do some work. However, because there's schedules wide open, I ask myself at this moment, do I want to read something? And I'm like juggling 3 different books right now. Do I want to listen to a podcast? Do I want to mix some music to stretch my creativity muscle? Or do I want to hunker down and get something done? Or, hop on a call and check in with someone. So I'd say like primarily that's been my practice through this period of time. It's like checking in with the heart and being like, all right, what's going to be exciting right now? And sure, there's not as many options as before, but I think that's where the creativity comes into play that you get to embrace.
So I'll share my personal thing with you.
Please.
As well. So like everyone else, I watch Netflix, right? I get into the channel flipping as well. And I'm okay with that because, as we were saying earlier, For me, it's not so much of seeking of watching a certain show or being entertained. For me, it's like, how do I want to feel? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
flavor of emotions
That's
I want
good.
to
I
get,
like that. I like that.
right? And but a lot of times I'm not like I don't know exactly what I'm looking for until so I have to like flip through different shows to kind of
Mm-hmm.
like test it on. Like basically, kind of like Panda Express, like try the orange chicken and then like, do I like it or do I not like it, right? So that's
Sure.
one way I'm going about it. Another way I'm going about it, I don't know if you ever had hape before, jungle
Yeah. But,
tobacco. Like hape
yeah.
is one of those the things really get me grounded right away, really, really
Mm,
quickly. So that's another way for me to just basically strip off all of the mental chatters, emotional
that's good.
chatters, and then
Yeah.
start from nothing.
That's great.
However, the inquiry that I have is a lot of times I'm still unclear what is it that I'm seeking. So I'll be flipping through different audiobooks, podcasts, the Netflix shows, try on the chocolates and then the
Sure.
bread. And I'm like, it's still unsatisfied, right? So
Yeah.
trying out all these delicious things, so to speak, but still not quite hitting the spot that I'm looking for. Do
Mm-hmm.
you have any mental models, a way to help you be more expedient, be more efficient in finding the emotional flavor that you're going after?
Mm. That's a great question. I wouldn't say there's necessarily a practice more than an inquiry that I ask myself of like, and I let the body kind of respond. So what I mean by that is I'll be like, okay, what do I want to do right now? I have a list of options that I've acquired skills with, and everyone has this ability to do so. And and then just kind of like move towards it. And whether it's like, okay, I want to go mix some music, and I move towards it, and I start touching it, and I start, preparing it, and then if there's not continual excitement from the body or the heart kind of like beating a little bit faster or just feeling flow by losing track of time, then I kind of adjust from there. And sometimes I may be completely, like in your example, flipping through the channels, and when I notice that, I go outside and lay on the hammock to kind of like recenter myself, be like, okay, just with the sun and the nature, and it's really nice weather here, to just kind of ground and reset. And then from there, I'll listen to some music, and usually it's music around classical music or the genre of medicine music if you're into that world. And it just allows me to recenter, and then from there I'll check in again. And so that's kind of that practice and using the body as a way to receive the answer.
So you're actually the second person who told me similar practice. So the moment you notice you're grasping for something, you would then
Right.
shut everything off and just go outside to nature to pause. And
Yeah.
then once you had that soft reset, then you can choose newly versus just
Right.
incessantly grasping and flipping through the channels.
Yeah, and I think of that as like a way to reset in terms of like asking the question like, what's your intention right now? Is it to rest? Is it to play? Is it to just be entertained and be lazy? If so, so be it. But just be
Mm-hmm.
intentional about it with it. And
Mm-hmm.
when I realize that I'm flipping through channels in that metaphor
Mm-hmm.
and unconsciously kind of going about my day, if I can catch myself, not every time, but if I can catch myself, that's what I mean by like heading into nature or just laying on a hammock outside, watching the leaves dance, watching the wind blow, watching the sun shine, et cetera, and then use that time to be like, okay, let's take a pause. What do I intend to do right now or be right now, and where would that bring me joy?
So segue to the next thing that I am curious about your point of view on this. So if you look at the yin and the yang um, symbol, the yang is all about intentionality, structure, right? Just going for a certain thing,
Sure.
and the yin is about surrender, chaos,
Yeah.
flow.
Yeah.
So two schools of thought around creativity, following flow, right, and then creating something. One school of thought is our egoic mind, our animal mind instinct is to basically be lazy and just
Sure.
do whatever. So therefore, we gotta have. I think it was Elizabeth Gilbert. I can't remember exactly who this famous author is. He said, "I'm always creative
Hmm.
at 9 o'clock in the morning in front of my desk, no
Hmm.
matter what." Right. So her thing is, let me sweep my temple, make sure
Mm,
this conduit is clean,
mm,
so then the muse can come through me at this
mm-hmm,
specific
mm-hmm.
time. So that's the
Beautiful,
school of thought of discipline. Another
beautiful.
school of thought is let's not force it,
Right,
right? So therefore, no discipline. Just when the channel comes, when the muse visits, then I'll go pick up a pen and start writing. So I'm
right.
curious to know your point of view.
Sure.
Are you one way or the other, or somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, real quickly, even before sharing that, I see it as like it's a balance between the masculine and the feminine. It's actually something I'm reading a lot into right now on masculinity and understanding femininity more. And masculinity is all around like mission and passion and drive and
Mm,
doing. Whereas the feminine is really about love and connection and receiving and surrendering, like you're saying as well. So I see a very similar path to that, which allows us to kind of maybe sometimes witness if a woman is very feminine and a man is very masculine, you can see that dichotomy very clearly in front of her eyes. To answer your question, I see it as this practice that I recently kind of received, which
mhm,
is called intend and surrender. And so there's actually a very beautiful song that I was listening to titled
mhm,
that, and it's called Intend and Surrender. So it is I see it like visually see it as like a dance
mhm,
between the yin and the yang, or the masculine and the feminine, where I am more predominantly a masculine male. So
mhm,
my default habit is to go create and to go do and to go succeed in this and that. And this last year in 2019, I've been focused a lot on like the feminine side, which is the surrender, because I know at some point my egoic mind can only go so far, or it can only achieve so much.
mhm.
And there's this core belief that there is some divine power and source beyond my wildest thoughts that exist. So it's this balance of this dance. I see it as a dance of intending, which means you can put out your intention. You can declare something that you want, because we are all creators. In our masculine core, we are all creators. And at the same time, how can you dance the spirits
Can you
are
repeat what
that
you said?
sometimes laugh at seeing us onto.
Can you
Oh,
repeat
yeah.
what you said? Yeah, cut out.
Yeah, and I said you can balance with the yeah, I'm saying you can balance with the feminine side, the surrender side, by connecting to a greater source who sometimes laughs at us when we think we can create everything just by ourselves, and then surrender. And surrender to me does not mean wave a white flag and lay down on your bed and be lazy.
Mhm,
It means moment to moment awareness of receiving signals and signs and listening to some greater power. And that's why I say I love going into nature, because that's my way of communicating or talking with some greater power, source, or spirits out there. And so it's this balance, this dance between put out your intention
mhm.
and then moment to moment awareness, and be listening very carefully.
So tactically speaking, I want to make this
Yeah.
conversation very actionable. So tactically, bring it back to what you were saying earlier about your rituals. You wake up, no social media, and then you go outside for a walk. And during this time, surrender, listen for whatever the consciousness is coming to you, then say your intention accordingly. Did I understand you correctly?
More so the other way, which is
The other way.
I'll take a walk, and it's very peaceful and quiet, and I'll
Hmm.
be putting on some medicine music just to kind of ground me. And
Hmm.
then I can check in with myself, like, what do I want to create today? What's my intention for today? It could be one word. Typically it's one word. And that can be as simple as on the weekends, it's just like play
Hmm.
or learn. But maybe on the weekdays, it's like focus or discipline, et cetera, et cetera. And then from there, I can, if I find myself very engulfed in it, or too into it, and I get too distracted by it, I may take throughout the day some time to go back into the hammock or outside and take a walk to kind of like receive or ask for clarity on certain things that I may be confused about.
Mm. So zoom out for a moment. And this
Yeah.
actually reminds me of a conversation I had with one of the guests, Jun Yoon. He is a hedge fund manager, managed $1 billion hedge fund, and all these other things. He made a very strong point of saying that he doesn't make any schedule for him.
Mm,
He doesn't plan like months out. He doesn't plan 2 weeks out. He is very much what I'm gonna do today and tomorrow kind of a guy,
mm,
right? For him.
beautiful.
So because he's asserting that when I have more space on my calendar, then I can follow my intuition
Yeah.
to do a certain thing versus if I plan weeks and months out, then my entire mental space is jam packed with stuff, and
Hmm.
therefore I have no room.
Hmm.
So would you say you're very similar to June in that way, in terms of managing your calendar and time?
Right. So for me, in this part of my life, in this
Mhm,
part of my journey, very much so aligned with that.
mhm,
Previously, in the past part of my journey, was the complete opposite of that. And
mhm,
so when I hear that kind of response, I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think it's
mhm,
where you're at in your journey.
mhm,
What do you want to create more in your life? Do you want to create more structure in your life, or do you want to create more flow in your life?
mhm.
That's the beauty of the yin and the yang, right? It's like balance is the ultimate and the beautiful thing that we all get to experience, because if you sway one way too much, I mean, that's why you see a lot of people and hippies get called woo woo. But then if
Mhm,
you flip on the way end, which is like very grounded and agnostic or whatnot, then you're going to be called like too much in the matrix. So
mhm.
it's like where are you in your journey? I ask myself, where am I in my journey that then I want to create more of, or invite more of something new that I have not been able to experience yet.
Yeah. So for you, it's more of a seasonality or pendulum
Almost,
swing.
very much so, very much so. At this moment in my journey, very much like what your guest was saying, like I don't plan ahead as much. And that's why even when I travel to different countries or different areas of the world, I'll just ask myself, like, where is it exciting for me to go explore right now based on stories I've read or people I've spoken with? And then I'll just make a call and go there.
Okay, cool. So let's bring this lesson, these analogies and metaphors
Sure.
to someone who's watching, who's listening right now. This is a very unique time in our lifetime, right? For some people who's 60, 70, 80 years old, they would say they have told me that they've never seen anything like this, where everyone is at home facing this pandemic, this virus, and it's impacting all areas of life, relationship, career, parental, physical, everything. So it's a very, very unique area, period of their life. So therefore, bring this to them, someone who's watching this. What would you say to them when they are reinventing, let's say, their business? So that way they can take whatever lessons they learned here to go out and practice and experiment.
Yeah. There's a practice we do in the work that I do after a retreat that we finish. It's said and labeled as by many, it's like a 10-year vision, but let's break it down even easier, which is,
Mm-hmm.
let's call it a 3-month vision and a 12-month vision.
Mm-hmm.
And this vision, the biggest opportunity that you get to change from what you may have been learning before or been told to do this before, is to come from a place of your heart and feeling into these dreams and aspirations you intend to create and invite into your life. So what I mean by this is, like, pull out or create an Excel spreadsheet, put out a 3-month, 90-day, and a 365-day.
Mm-hmm.
And in each of these columns, you have about 7 categories, which entail your personal life in terms of like relationships with your friends and family and your romantic, your community, your work, your finances, your hobbies, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever places in your life you are willing to make a change or open to make a change for. And then in the 90-day column, actually before that, what we do is we actually write a journal to ourselves. Call it 1 year from now. We can start 1 year from now.
Mm-hmm.
And in this journal, you address to yourself, like, what has changed. You use language that has already manifested. And that's very powerful because words are creative. And so whatever words you use and you really believe and you repeat to yourself is a very powerful practice. So you
Wait,
write to
back up.
yourself.
You talked about, that's a powerful principle you just shared. So back up one sentence and say that again, please.
Well, to recorrect myself, I would say thought is creative. Thought is
Mm-hmm.
creative, which words are the actions to start to make that happen. So
Mm-hmm.
any thought one makes has the power, or is the foundation to, and has the power to create that thought. So it all stems from a thought. And like I said in the beginning of this, the biggest opportunity to shift in this practice versus maybe other times that you heard is, instead of like just a thought, maybe combine it with a feel. And that's where I feel like maybe a lot of people miss or just weren't taught or ever advised or told, which is, I've learned this in my Vipassana. It's one thing to like know something conceptually in your mind, but it's a whole different ball game and ballpark when you feel it in your body, right? So imagine, for example, the last time you had a heartbreak. You feel it in your body. Like you know what that feels like, and you will do anything it takes to not feel that again. But it's not that you have to store it in your memory. It's in your body because you remember it. And so in any situation that happens again, you will feel it and you'll know what to do to either avoid it or change that. Similarly, you can apply that in this 1-year vision in the journal, which is if you can really tap into this place where you really believe 1 year from now, this has manifested, this has been created, XYZ has been happening or has happened. And you reread it every single day to the point where your body really feels that that exists and that is happening, has happened. I think the key is has happened. Your body will just store that in its own memory. And what happens now is that any day you go about your day-to-day life, you have a million options to choose from, right? Like go to do this, go do that. How do you spend your time here and there? What happens is when your body knows and feels what it really wants and based on what you've created in this journal, it will navigate you or help you be more aware of what choices to make in the plethora of choices we get to make on a daily basis. So after the journal, what you can do is then pull up an Excel spreadsheet, create 2 columns, and have it a 90-day and a 1 year. And then what you'll do is start to implement action items. And that's, again, where the master that you're saying we get to create comes into play. And after you finish and put down all of those, now is where you invite the yang or the surrender or the feminine now to come in, where you're going to be like, look, I declare these intentions. I know I'm a creator and I can make these happen. And I know that I don't know everything. And actually, maybe some of the things I created did come from the mind. And if it did come from the mind, it will only take you so far. And so now the practice is to surrender into being very aware on a day-to-day basis if what signs are showing up that will guide you towards manifesting and inviting what it is that you dreamt of in that 1-year journal that you created for yourself.
So quick question, quick interjection there, because I would say it's very challenging to discern the difference between a vision that's created by the mind versus from the heart, right? From the authentic self. One may say it's almost indistinguishable or not. So I'm curious to know from your point of view, how do you discern? One is more of an egoic driven, mind driven, cerebral driven, logical driven. One is more of a holistic alignment driven. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have one practice and maybe one question to help distinguish that. One practice is pull up your most favorite childhood song and play that in your ears and close your eyes. And when that song finishes, ask yourself what it is you're feeling and use that as a benchmark to know that that comes from a pure place of love and heart, because when you were young, you were very innocent. All of us were very innocent. Not so much programmed with so many things that our mind is convincing us right now. So that's one practice. Pull up your most favorite childhood song, or even a song that just like makes your heart like melt away, and use that feeling as a benchmark after the song finishes to compare when you write something down. Is that resonating in that similar vibration or feeling in that heart? A question that you can ask to distinguish after you write something down is to ask, does this, what I just wrote down, derive from any programming that someone might have told me when I was young, with a parent or a teacher or a mentor? And if so, do I still believe in it? And if so, then I'd say I think it aligns with your heart. And if not, then it gets a little bit like, okay, maybe you can dive in deeper to be like, if it is attached to some old programming or your ego, then you get to make that choice and you can adjust from that. And then maybe just tweak it a little bit that then resonates with that feeling that you had with your heart after you listened to that childhood song, for example.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So three columns. One is the different categories. 30 days, 90 days, right?
Yes.
So from your point of view, so for me, I have 5 categories. It's
Okay.
very easy for me. So 5 Fs. I actually learned this from Kevin Nation. Yeah, he said finance, fitness, what else? Family
Family.
slash
Yeah.
relationship, right? Fun and faith.
Beautiful. I
So
love that.
these covers major areas of my
I love
life,
that. I think
right?
that's a beautiful, beautiful template to use.
Yeah, there are different. Again, it depends on your core beliefs. Some people believe using the triune brain as a model: physical, emotional, and then mental. So that's their model. 3 categories. For
Okay.
you, what are some of the major categories that you think about?
Yeah. Let me pull it up. I actually have it here.
Mm,
It was health, which is physical and mental, self-image, intimate partner and relationship,
mhm,
family, both
mhm,
present and future,
mhm,
hobbies and activities, which is equivalent to your fun, my friends or my community,
mhm,
my spirituality, my
mhm,
finances, my
mhm,
work, and my
mhm.
living environment.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, living environment. That's another thing that's huge that
Yeah.
most of us don't think about.
And so
How do you?
now you can list all those categories down and then
Mhm,
write that journal entry. And I just want to just say one thing. I'd love for you to move on as well. The one thing I think is beautiful is that, like you said in the beginning, this moment we're going through is very similar. If those who have gone through a ceremony, this is a ceremony right now. And in my work, we go through these sacred ceremonies, and then we give this exercise for them because it's kind of like a rebirth of some crazy, unexplainable, ineffable experience that sort of like rewires your brain and just challenges everything that you've come to know. And this is exactly what's happening right now, where
mhm,
we're having so much time to dive in inwards. If you give yourself the opportunity to, you have the opportunity to like consider and model this. It's getting thrown upside down right now. And so this is that perfect opportunity, as soon as you can really see that and put it together, to write that 1 year journal entry and then translate that into that spreadsheet afterwards.
I would say here's actually something that's comparable or parallel, perhaps. It's very difficult to have a clear vision or compelling vision during ceremony because you're
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of a
Mm-hmm.
very intense experience.
Very true.
So 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 to help people who are going through this, very intense experience, whether it's professionally, financially, relationally, because you're cooped up in the house, right? You're dealing with,
Totally.
you're staring your partner. There's a lot of friction happening. So a very challenging time. So how do you help them deal with the adversity and then come up with a vision that's compelling, that's very cerebral as well as heart center aligned?
Right. So if we take this similar analogy in ceremony, and we're still going through a ceremony right now.
Hmm.
Um, you take it back to the practice of a traditional sacred ceremony, which is you go in with an intention and you receive, or you open your heart to receive. You practice meditation to quiet the mind or be able to stay present to then receive answers and signs from all around us, whether it's from people that we talk with, that we're staying in quarantine with, or sitting out in nature with the grass and putting our hands on the ground and just asking. So I'd say right now is the perfect time to just be asking questions,
Hmm.
receive answers, or just be open to the possibility to receive answers from outside our mind, and then take down those notes and just log them down. And when you feel like you are coming out of a place where maybe it's the end of the quarantine, maybe it's next week where you feel like you're in a much better spot, we're able to come out the other side or see the light, that might be the time to like review your thoughts and your notes and what you received and the answers that you received from some external source, to then be able to piece together this journal and this spreadsheet after.
Mm. Okay, so let me recap a little bit.
Yeah,
So surrender, receive, don't make whatever thoughts or emotions come up wrong. Just be open
receive.
with it. Just
Yeah,
receive and take notes, right? And once you're at a more center spot, more grounded spot, then you can revisit the vision and really help concretize, like, hey, how do I
exactly.
feel about this vision that I have? All right.
Exactly.
Is that
And
accurate?
again, yes, correct. And again, at that point, just remember you have the choice to believe anything you want. There's a powerful quote. It's like, what you believe, you become. So at that moment, you have that choice of like believing option A, which is what you saw and felt and received, or option B, which is more of a grounded perspective, and maybe you're not ready to invite that kind of perspective into your life right now. But you have the opportunity to choice to believe what you want, and then make that, be conscious that you can make that, and then run with it.
All right, beautiful. Again, I want to make this very actionable. So I wanted to hone in on this even more. So say now I have a vision. Then and there's many different opportunities, the mechanisms to help me bridge that vision between now and the future, right? So do you have any suggestions on ways to brainstorm on the opportunities and then find the one that's most suitable for?
Absolutely. So I liken it to my own journey so far, where I've received this like ineffable, unexplainable vision that I would never experienced or expected. And it was this vision of like, after my tech career, I would go take everything I've learned and go create a campus for alternative healing, where you bring facilitators of alternative modalities and bring people who have tried, traditional medicine to come here and do that. And I'm
By the
like,
way, this is before your One Heart experience, or
that's correct. That's correct. This is before my One Heart experience.
So you
This
exited
is
all of a
this
sudden.
is 6 months. This is actually 6 months before I sold my company.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so
Yeah.
already
And so,
your mind is sort of guiding you towards that healing direction.
well,
even though you haven't known.
I'd say like some spirit, some greater source guiding me towards that.
Wow.
And so, okay, so when I say that, because when I think about that, or I remember I've dropped myself back into that moment, I'm like, I'm a tech person, right? Like I'm a startup founder, I'm a startup junkie. Like I'll go create more web apps or technology startups. That's where I'm focused on. And that's where I'm good at. I knew in deep in my heart that this was the path. And I was like, okay, how do I go about this, right? So let's say you have this vision and you're like, how do I even go about this? The word is integration, but the tactical piece is small commitments. So what are tiny micro commitments, just small actions that you can take? And if that's still too much, make it even smaller. So for me, it wasn't like, oh, let's go. It wasn't my commitments to go find, land and go find retreat centers or this and that. My commitment of the integration phase was, let's go talk to people about it. Just my friends, people who would understand what I'm going through. Maybe someone who maybe has a similar vision that I've spoken with, and that's exactly what I did. And so I started talking to many different friends who either spoke a very similar language of this world of what I'm, stepping into at that time, or in the world of be able to understand transitioning. And lo and behold, after one conversation with one really good friend, he introduced me to the people of the co-founders of the organization I'm part of now, called One Heart. And that's kind of unraveled the way it is. But the main point here is the keyword is integration. The tactical action item is small micro commitments. And that could be as simple as like your daily eating habits. It could be as simple as like, things that you find unhealthy that you want to get rid of, whatever it is, but find like you can like understand what that vision is, but like work backwards to be like, okay, what would it take to do that? What would it take to do that? If that's still too much for me right now, based on where my finances are or where my life is and my commitments are, let's take it even smaller and smaller and smaller until you can get to like one core commitment that you can either make on a daily basis or on some habitual basis, some repetitive basis. Because there's, as I've learned, there's essentially two ways to make a change in your life, which is either through hypnosis or through repetition. And so you're creating a small micro habit to commit to then repeat over and over, so that it becomes such a natural behavior or such a natural part of your life that gives you one step closer to activating or manifesting that vision that you have.
There's a phrase in Chinese, I'm sure you have heard of it, called the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think it was a Stanford researcher, BJ Fogg, who said, if you want to train yourself with a habit of flossing, start with a commitment of one tooth.
Yes.
So if you just do that, chances are you're not going to just floss one tooth. You're going to go overboard. You're going to do the whole thing after you start with one. But the commitment is one tooth.
Exactly. I
Right.
love that. And that's where I think our behavior gets to start to change and then adopt. And then that's where that transformation starts to happen.
Mm. So bring it to someone who's watching this,
Sure.
entrepreneur or otherwise, right? They may be reinventing their business. They may be starting a business altogether because their events business is now gone,
Yeah.
and they're seeing uh, a huge need right now for, let's say, PPE, personal protective
Sure.
equipment, mask, facial mask, and things like that. They're seeing, all right, so supply chain issues. They're seeing, all right, we need new designs. They're seeing just a huge mess over here, right? And if you, so that's currently a quote unquote challenge and also an opportunity at the same time. How would you help them narrow down their commitment? So the one thing that I hear you say is just go and have conversations with people who are thinking
That
along
was
the
one,
line.
right? But let's bring this more tactically in the business world because that's
Mm-hmm.
still, let's be honest, where my brain lies a lot of times, anyways.
Mm-hmm. Great,
Um,
perfect.
so just some background. The company I'm a part of is a travel events retreats business.
Right.
And with all flights being barred and borders being closed, we've had to completely press the pause button.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had to put into action what we've been talking about and preaching and teaching. And so we have to make some pivots as well. And so, when I think about, okay, you realize that something has paused and you need to make a pivot, what we committed to, and this was hard. And I'm thinking back and I'm like, yeah, it was a hell of a journey. The commitment was first and foremost like this belief that some changes and that's number one.
Sorry,
Number
sorry, hold on,
two
hold on. You got cut
is,
out. You got cut out. So
oh yeah,
believe what? So say again.
number one is like believe that change is constant. So
Mm-hmm.
this you're gonna have to make a change. Like holding on to something is just the worst thing we can do right now. If we just kept holding on to our business, believing that borders are going to be open and it's something outside of our control, I think it's just doing us a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two is like coming with an open mind and open heart to brainstorm what are the capabilities and ideas that we can create with the given resources, the given strengths, and the given people that we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what we did. But that's where the hardest part was,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where a lot of people are like, let's go do this, let's go do that. And then you have to find the alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why number three is like this commitment to remembering what your mission is and what you want to bring into this world, and not get so caught up, and not saying you don't need to consider this, but not get so caught up in like pure profit.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the hard part though. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what we went through. Where number three commitment was like stay aligned and in integrity to your mission. Because the more you do that, the more your customers, the more your audience, the more your community will feel and see that to then really want to support you. If you're reacting from a place of fear of like, I need to make payroll right now, which I understand some of you do, the fun challenge I invite is how can you still create a solution that allows for alignment to the mission and is financially sustainable. And so that was the tough journey we went through. But I'd say those are the three kind of steps we took in terms of micro commitments. And it wasn't anything we had to do more than it was that what we needed to be and what we needed to stay aligned and in integrity with. So those are some tactical ways that we approached it. And then from there,
let's actually make it even more concrete, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So did you have a conference call and you just basically get present to, in black and white, our commitment, our core competencies, here are the opportunities, and used all those things as a filter to see what arrives in the end? Like,
correct.
concretely, is that what you guys did?
Yeah, so literally step by step, what we did was we had an emergency meeting, calling out for what it is, being like, things are stalling, things are stopping. We got to sort of press pause on our core business. And look, we have option A, which is like, just write it out and not do anything, or option B, do something because we have the capability and time to do so. So we went with option B. Then after option B was chosen, it was like, okay, what are our ideas? And we have a person who's really, his superpower is coming up with ideas. And so we really leaned on him as well as the team to kind of like filter down some ideas from like 5 of them to like 2 of them, and finally to 1 of them. When we have alignment in that one idea, what we then do that is obviously like virtual, that is financially sustainable, that is aligned to the vision and the mission of the company, and we believe that the customers or the audience would actually very much benefit from that, then what we do is we start to make action items on how do we quickly validate this. And that's where the whole lean startup methodology comes into play, where you can be like, okay, who's the customer we need to get? Let's go do some development with them. Let's go present this to all parties that need to be in the decision making for this to actually happen and be validated. And then finally get to launch. So we're at stage 3. The next phase is actually to launch it. But that only took like maybe 10 days total from start to finish. It was a brutal 10 days. But I mean, because I've had, you know, and many of us are business owners, and because I've had a business owning experience, I mean, you have to agree that whatever worked in the past, a month or 2 months ago, and you're stalled right now, like to believe right now that something all of a sudden will change is just not, hope is not a good strategy at this moment. So let's bring it tactically to like commit to those 3 things I first mentioned, and then follow that step-by-step process to actually put into action what you can do.
Yeah, I want to bring in an analogy of your house is on fire, right? Hoping and praying that God or Jesus or whatever you believe in to say, take care of the fire for you is not a good idea. It's not a good strategy in a tactical way. So still have your faith, and at the same time, take some action to dissolve and resolve this fire happening. That's what I'm hearing from what you're saying. So surrender at the same time.
Right, and I have another analogy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
There's a way to maybe also be able to see this, which is, have you ever heard of be, do, have, right? So a lot of us as entrepreneurs like to do this thing where we follow do, have, be, which means I'm going to go do all these things because I'm reacting because the pandemic is happening. So I'm going to do all these things right now to then have some money to then be safe. Let's flip that on its head, which is, let's start with the be. So let's be at peace, knowing that, and be accepting, knowing that things are changing, be in alignment, be in integrity, like be, and then fill in the word. And then really like believe that and like live in that. Then that will help you unravel what it is that you have to do, right? So like, okay, now I'm in alignment. Now I'm at peace. I'm accepting. I'm going to go create something that comes from a place of more peace and love versus fear and anxiety and scarcity. That will allow me to have the abundance that comes from that as well. So there's this mixture of like, yeah, you get to be it and tap into spirit and some higher, greater power and source to get into that be state. And then it is still part of us in living in this 3D reality, in this world right now, to take action, to do something with it, and then to have and receive your fruits that you bear.
Are there any frameworks that you use to help identify one's core competencies, one's superpower? And I ask that question because if it's something that a skill set that you have honed over time, it's effortless for you, right? Yep. So it's hard to see it because it's so easy for you. Fish doesn't see water is what I tell people. Yep. So are there ways, I know the 3 of you or the entire company got together and started to think about sort of the core competency superpower question, but are there other ways to really help whoever is listening to this right now really hone in on the core competency, the core superpower that they have?
Yeah, there's these questions that I usually ask myself. One is, go to like your 3 most trusted best friends or people you can just go to for any issues or challenges. And just be like, hey, what do you see that I just really enjoy and I'm good at? Like, what would you come to me for help when you're facing that? Just ask like 3.
How do you make sure that they don't tell you things that they think you want to hear?
Qualify that. You know, qualify that. Be like, give me straight up. Don't bullshit me. Like I'm at a point in my life where I need the honest truth because I'm going through a transition, and your answer will greatly benefit and influence the choices I make. So I need you to come from a place of truth and heart and love. And no matter what you say, I'm always going to receive it from a place of love. And look, maybe sometimes they won't know, and that's okay. Or they'll be like, well, actually, you don't have anything that I would come to. Then, then that's a time maybe to go explore a new skill that you really enjoy. But let's say they do. Let's say they say something, and you get to practice that 2 more times, maybe even 5 more times with the 5 closest friends, and then see what pattern emerges. There's going to be a pattern based on these 5 people, 3 to 5 people that you talk to. For me, it was like marketing, specifically around like content, specifically around community, and I was able to see that. And then when I ask the second step is to ask yourself, like, does this resonate? Does this resonate to a point where I actually very much enjoy it, to the point where I lose track of time, where I don't even want to look at time because I'm so enjoying it? And do people really receive value and enjoy my creation for them? And so those are some of the questions I would ask from there. And you can start with your co-founders or your business managers or your top execs, because they're the ones who are always kind of being near you, watching you, or working with you. So that's what I would say is like one very easy, tactical way to find your superpower. The last one, the other way is on the flip end, is to ask internally. So it's a fuse between the 2 questions of like, what do I love? And what do I know I'm good at? And maybe you can dive even deeper of like, what am I good at is related to like, what do I not feel is work? And that can be translated into like, what I would just work for free for, And there's these ways you can keep asking to like, okay, I would work for free to teach them how to nurture community. Yeah, I really enjoy that, and I would do that for free. And that's because I'm so confident in myself that I will be able to provide value for these people. And I actually really enjoy it, and I don't want to be charged for it, for example. And then from there, you can be like, do I really love it? Do I find myself, again, not looking at the time, do I find myself when I look at the time, 2-3 hours have passed all of a sudden? And so that's just another way of feeling what flow can feel like.
So question here on the monetization aspect of it. I love it. I'm good at it. It's effortless for me. I so enjoy it. It's timeless. Then how do I make a living to sustain and support myself in doing this? Because it may be totally, this whole thing of virtualization, I will get more perhaps tactical with you guys on what you guys are doing now, if it's okay to share.
Yeah.
Is how do you, this virtualization is new. People are experiencing this new behavior for most people. For us, is we're used to it, but for most people, it's new. So then, how do we charge to support ourselves?
I think there's a lot of ways depending on which company or what industry you're in. But the first thing that comes up is a truth that I've come to believe in my startup days, that your business model is always a living, breathing creature. It's always evolving. What you believe as the exact model, whether it's a subscription model or a one-time payment or $10 right now versus $500 later, it's always going to be evolving. So the best thing to do is to make one hypothesis of what the monetization strategy can be and push it out. So if it's a $5 a month subscription for whatever business you're in right now, or if it's a $500 one-time fee right now, what's going to happen when you launch that out and if you get money, maybe you're onto something and you can keep tweaking it. If you're not getting any money, there's something inherently not connecting well with the hypothesis of the model you created. So in this case, let's say you said $500 one-time fee, and you're not getting anyone to pay. Then what I would ask you is, are you targeting the right audience? Is the right audience, and then from there, if so, are you positioning your value properly? That can go into all these different discussions, but the main point is your business model is going to always be evolving. So the best tactical advice I can give is like, name one hypothesis right now that you believe could work. And the more you can get that out tomorrow or in the next hour, the better. And if something's not working where you're not receiving the money, then you get to tweak it by asking yourself, or even asking your friends who may have signed up or just was on the verge of signing up, or your customers, why didn't you sign up? And just go talk to them, and then they'll give you your answers.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it's not too private, what are you guys up to? Or is
Sure.
it still in the...
I can give some insight. So our original business model is a retreat business. So
Mhm,
we have an 8-week program, 1 week live experience that
mhm,
averages around $5,000 ticket item.
mhm,
And we can nail down our target market, we can nail down our value proposition, et cetera, et cetera. So
mhm,
that's working. Now, when that's all frozen and paused, we got to think like, okay, what can we do? So we looked back in our mission statement, and the mission statement states we are here to elevate heart leaders' lives, work, and community.
mhm,
The lives had been focused on the retreat product has been focused on the lives. So then now we're like, okay, can we work on the next part of the mission, which is the work
mhm,
aspect of the people we work with.
mhm,
And so that's where we started. And again, that's where I said, like, make sure you're being in alignment to the mission and providing value. So from there, we're thinking, okay, can we create some model where we accelerate one business and we get a task force from all our alumni who have come through the journey through our retreat, who are business leaders themselves, and like go all in on one company and accelerate them as fast as possible
mhm,
through network introductions, through knowledge-based transfers, through mentoring, through XYZ, you name it. We have 200 alumni that each have their own superpowers they have identified in their lives. They're on a level of consciousness that's a little bit more aware than they were previously, so they can speak a similar language. So there's inherent value. How can we find a business model, a financial model that will match that?
mhm,
And so what we're thinking is, how can we maybe combine either a fee directly charged by the company, and we're like this accelerated task force to do that, or we raise money from our tribe, from our alumni, to fundraise for this fee, and the investors would get equity in the company, and that fund
mm.
would go directly into our business model to pay us sustainably.
I see.
It's
So like a
very
virtual
unique.
accelerator model, basically.
Yeah,
I
it's a
love that.
virtual accelerator model, and the financial business model is supported by our tribe,
Mhm,
our alumni who
mhm,
are either investors or super angels that
mhm,
would still want to invest in the company, but instead of using the money for traditional hiring or traditional
mhm,
marketing that maybe is not make sense right now, invest that fund back into this community, into this organization,
mhm,
who is here to say, we're going to activate a chunk of our 200 alumni to accelerate this business. Your value of the equity that you receive in the fund that you put in will double or triple or whatever value
mhm,
increase.
mhm, mhm,
And so there's alignment on all parties. There's integrity to the mission, and there's value for everyone to be a part of and contribute. So
mhm,
it's novel. It's different.
mhm.
It may work, it may not work, but it's something that's in alignment. And I think in this time, it calls for like new models to be created.
So bridging on our earlier conversations about different categories, different areas of life that's important to us, I think especially at this time, it's time to really double down on our core relationships. In your case, this is a tribe that you built of 200 investors slash entrepreneurs. Now, how can you pull resources to support one another as well as seize new opportunities going
Right.
forward? Is that an
Right.
accurate recap?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
It's
cool.
essentially activating the work side of our mission. Personal life has been very spiritual focused, as I mentioned, through sacred ceremonies, and accelerate your personal life in your consciousness and awareness. Now it's activating the work side, which is a very key part of our lives, on our day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. And I think tactically, people who are listening to this, my friends, tactically, now is the time to really double down on your advisory board or your
Mm,
personal advisory network. Whoever your best friends or your business advisors, your executives, now is the time to really, pull your headspace together, as well as going further. If you have a mastermind like One Heart, if you have
yeah,
a community of people who you can collaborate with, right? Now is the time to do that. And also at the same time too, you can also broaden that even further. Let's just use the COVID-19 as an example. Are there innovations that you can help address this and mastermind this together? This is now is the time. Everyone is stuck at home. They're bored. They're looking for things to do. They don't have the normal board meetings or employee issues they're dealing with. So now they're looking for new opportunities to create something newly to contribute to this problem that everyone is dealing with right now.
Yeah.
So it's call people that you wanted to establish some relationship with, because
Can I
chances
add
are
something to that?
yeah, please.
When you make that call, when you make that reach out, my invitation is to not immediately ask, I need your help. Rather, flip it on its head and be like, how can I help you? Or how can I support you? And that's where that authenticity comes into play. That's where your heart can really shine. And what we've been doing, especially with the community, yeah, we'll ask for them. We'll ask help when it's needed. But until then, how can we keep servicing them, right? How can we keep servicing our most close advisors or colleagues right now? And for us, we've been hosting weekly Zoom calls where everyone shares a skill. It's like an digital open mic where it turns into like a show where everyone shares their talent. And their talents are all revolved around some spiritual aspect, some art creative aspect, music aspect. Live show to partake in and watch. And what we're doing is just bringing the community together, shining the light on them, and then spreading like beautiful art and skills with each other. And that's why I say, like, before asking for help immediately when you call your most trusted network, ask the question, how can I support you right now? So that conversation naturally evolves into like, thank you for your support. How can I support you? And that's where you can bring it out.
Yeah, to your point earlier, call your top customer, your business relationships, and then just provide that space of listening, of basically not trying to give advice or anything. Because minimally, that's we can all do that. Just hold that space of pristine listening. Just allow them to share whatever emotional roller coaster that they're going through, and because that's a decent thing to do as a human being. And now that you're top of mind, then you can develop your relationship even further.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. So we didn't actually get a chance to dive deeper into the spirituality aspect of it. Do you mind going into that direction? So when you were a very masculine, energetic driven, intentionality, achievement driven entrepreneur, you weren't spiritual back then, right? And now you have some peak experiences through medicine journeys and community driven things. Now you're more spiritual. So how would you define spirituality? This is now an important area of life. What's your definition of spirituality?
I think in the most simple way, I'd see like spirituality as like this all-knowing, like deep knowing belief that there's some greater power outside of us that is here for us, that is in their role is to support us, and our role is to invite that. So that's how I would most easily kind of describe from my experience what spirituality is.
And then how do you cultivate or deepen your relationship in that area in your life?
And there's a quote that one of the teachers I've embarked with shared, which is this simple line of suspend logic to invite magic. So this idea of like, what if, maybe starting the question, what if there is some greater power out there? What if someone is watching over me? What if they actually have all my best intentions at play here? Maybe keep continually asking that question, what if? But the idea is to suspend logic and be like, oh, that's there's not enough science to prove this. There's not enough this to prove that. And, I'd say like science is very powerful and it can be definitely balanced with that. And in the beginning of time, when whatever happened, there was no science and there was so many unexplainable things that happened. that we get to invite that more. And so I think the practice is being open, inviting magic to exist in your life. And that sometimes takes in the form of situations that you call a coincidence. But in the spiritual realm or in the spiritual world, they call it no coincidence. They call it imperfect timing. And what if you shifted that perspective of coincidence? There's no such thing as coincidence, and more of like that was perfect timing for me. And so it's just these little shifts in your perspective of inviting that magic. I think we'll be able to cultivate more of a spiritual exploration.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So for someone who's listening, watching this, and being inspired by your story, what's one thing? Because we cover a number of different areas. We
Sure.
talked about staying calm, staying grounded, right? During this time of turbulence and chaos. We talked about tactically how to go about finding opportunities, the three
Yeah.
columns, right? The categories, the 30 days and 90 days. Then we talked about what other things we talk about? Community, right?
Yeah.
How tactically,
Monetization, pivots,
right?
business,
We talk
all.
about pivoting, like very, very tactical things that they can all do. And you're looking at different opportunities, all of that. So we cover, and then now we talked about spirituality. So everything that we cover, if they can leave with one thing, what would you start them out with? What's one area of life, one little discipline that they can take on?
Yeah, I'm going to come from a little left field here. It's a three words that I've come to believe is like my life path and almost like what I would title my memoir. So that's why I would say this is my message, which is surrendering to service.
Mm-hmm.
Surrendering to service. So what I mean by that is, we talked a lot about service. I mean, talked a lot about surrender and creating,
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't talked as much about service, but service and a little bit about it in this time right now of like approaching every conversation from a place of like, how can I support you? How can I
Right.
service you? I'd say even one level deeper in that perspective is, what if you surrender to service? So I see it
Mm-hmm.
as like someone comes to you or you ask the question, like, how can I support you? And whatever they say, you just like, okay, let's go do it. And see what that births and see what comes about from that. So for example, what if this possibility of you call up your neighbor or someone close and you have a conversation and you ask them, how can I support you? How can I service you? I, by the way, love using the word support or service over help. So it's a little tactical thing there.
Mm-hmm.
It levels the playing field for everybody. And so when asking that question, be very intently listening to their answer. If they say nothing, maybe even dive in a little bit deeper, being like, how can I support you? Just want to ask again. And when they say it, no matter what it is, fall into the surrender part of it and just do your best to make that happen for them. Because some of the most magical moments in my life has resulted from this idea of surrendering to service. And that's not to say you should do that for everybody, because you get to practice self-care and boundaries
Mm-hmm.
and re-energize yourself. It just means that when you're at that point where you feel like you want to and you can, or you're just bored or lost, surrendering to service can be a very powerful North Star to unlock doors, unlock opportunities, and unlock magic that maybe right around you, you're just not seeing it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that can take so many forms, but that's sort of the idea or practice I would invite to practice starting today, tomorrow, tonight with one person and see where that takes you.
I love that. Jam on that a little bit more. It's very easy right now in the social distancing, the quarantine, the self isolation, whatever phrase you call it right now. It's very easy to go down to that emotional downward spiral of woe
Right.
is me, my finance, my relationships, this and that, my business, right? But if you're able to carve out a little bit mental space, a little bit of time and energy to service others, so your
Right.
focus is on being of service to others versus focusing on yourself, that intrinsically free yourself up to for more mental space, more energetic space, as well as you just feel good afterwards. And in that, then afterwards you will then discover something new about that you could be grateful for, and something new that you have more space to move around internally after
Yeah.
that. So thank you
Yeah.
for your
Yeah.
presence.
The only thing I'll add to that is that, I'd say service is also a privilege. I'm not saying that everyone should be doing it immediately. If you need to take care of yourself, or you're at a point of your life where you need to really, focus on yourself, do that. I'm just saying that when you have some capacity, even emotionally, financially, spiritually, mentally, to be able to service someone else, pose that question for them, and then just surrender to it by doing what you can to make that happen, some form of that to make it happen. And I think magic will birth from that. Some feeling of deep gratitude, some feeling of like, wow, like maybe I can unravel more of my purpose from that because I enjoyed that so much. Last relationship with someone that, who knows, maybe down the line, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now, is going to be the best perfect person you need for whatever situation you're dealing with. I don't know, but that's where that magic a possibility exists.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. So for anyone who are inspired by your stories and wisdom, your narrative, and they want to continue to follow with One Heart, and also Tim, you personally, where can they go to follow up with you?
Yeah, all my social media channels are my name, TimSaeKoo. Feel free to connect with me, drop a message so I know where you came from. I'll probably ignore you if it just looks like a spam, so just drop me a message. Share what you liked, share what you want to learn more about. I'm happy to connect. And then if you want to look more into the organization I'm part of, it's called One Heart, the number one, HEART.com, and you can learn more there.
Hey, you know what? Well, actually, one thing I did forget to ask you
Yeah.
is, what do you think the use of psychedelics as a way to help go through this period of turbulence and chaos and the unknown? This is a very direct question. I'm just curious to know
Yeah.
what you think of it.
Um, yeah, not saying that I've practiced it or not, wink,
Mm-hmm.
wink, but during this time, I believe that the intentional, safe usage and practice of psychedelics can really bubble up and bring to awareness any fears or
Mm-hmm.
truths that you have kind of burrowed deep down, and
Mm-hmm.
bring that to light. And whether that's fear of finances,
Mm-hmm.
fear of death, fear of abandonment, or deep truths of like, I really don't like this person, or I really need to tell this person I love them, whatever it is. I
Mm-hmm.
think this is what, at this time, one of the most potent usages of psychedelics can do for one,
Mm-hmm.
which at the end of the day is for your growth
Mm-hmm.
in either, a fear or self-limiting belief that's unraveled, or a relationship you get to cultivate better with, and using it for those purposes can be very powerful at this moment.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Yeah, the way I see all of these catalysts are, well, catalysts and multipliers. If there are certain things that you couldn't let go of,
Yeah.
if there are certain truth that you couldn't see, if there's certain, yeah, if you can't get out of in your mental construct of reality, this is a good way to get different perspectives, right?
There's a fun little meme out there. His name is Bob, I think, or Bill.
Mhm.
And he said, "This is Bill. Bill wants to go travel but can't. So Bill decides to journey inwards with
Mhm.
some psychedelics, be like Bill."
Mhm.
So, I think just to throw some humor in it, this is a very powerful way to journey inwards. This time is a very
Mhm.
powerful journey inwards to dive into ourselves, bring out any challenges, fears, beliefs, constructs that we maybe have hid ourselves away from, and face them and bring
Mhm.
them.
Mhm. Well, Tim, thank you so much for being here and sharing your stories, your wisdom, your tactical frameworks with us. Really, really appreciate you just showing up and embodying leadership in this time. I
Okay.
think a lot of people are going through this turbulent time, this chaotic time, and we're looking for more leadership. So thank you for showing up and saying
For
yes
sure.
and help.
You're so welcome. And if anyone needs any support, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll do my best to support you in some way that I can. And thank you again for the opportunity.